Hi folks, and welcome back. In the last two videos, we started looking at David Lewis's convention. In the first video, we looked at Lewis's attempt at defining a coordination problem. A coordination problem is one in which there is a game between two or more players, where the players experience what Lewis calls a coincidence of interests. That is, their interests rise and fall together. The players do better by coordinating their behaviors than they do by competing with one another or each going their own way. So they want to try to coordinate, but they face a problem because in a coordination problem, there are at least two proper coordinated equilibria. There are at least 2 points in the game where the players would like to end up, and they have to figure out how to end up at one of those points in the game. So they face a kind of problem. In the second video, we looked at how Lewis thinks about instances where players manage to solve these problems. Sometimes these problems are solved by explicit agreement, but in many cases explicit agreement is not necessary. They are solved by what is sometimes called tacit agreement, which is simply the case where each agent reasons about what they believe the other agent is likely to do. They form expectations about the other agent's expectations and choose their path of action or their course of action on the basis of those expectations. And in many cases, those expectations are formed on the basis of which coordinated equilibria is most salient. If one coordinated equilibria stands out amongst all of the possible coordinated equilibria, an agent has reason to think that the other agent also notices that it stands out and will likely aim for that coordinated equilibria. In some cases, a coordinated equilibria stands out because of some inherent features of that equilibria, but in many cases it is salient because of some precedent that exists. We've seen in the past that this is the way things worked out. We've had some experience with similar cases and so are going to aim for the same sorts of coordinated equilibria in this particular case. And in many cases, these are governed by a kind of regularity. We see a regularity of behavior among a bunch of cases or across a bunch of cases among a bunch of different players and expect that regularity to carry through to this case. The prime example I gave was the example of driving on the right-hand side of the road or walking on the right-hand side of the hallway. Now we want to take a look at Lewis's first pass at a definition of a convention. This is the goal of the text, is to define convention in such a way that we can understand conventions arising where none existed before and use this conception to do some philosophical work. So this is his first attempt at defining this central notion. A regularity, R, in the behavior of members of a population, P, when they are agents in a recurrent situation, S, is a convention if and only if, in any instance of S among members of P, everyone conforms to R, everyone expects everyone else to conform to R, everyone prefers to conform to R on the condition that the others do, since S is a coordination problem, and uniform conformity to R is a proper coordinated equilibrium. A convention consists of a regularity in behavior, a system of mutual expectations, and a system of preferences. So when we see those three conditions met, there is a regularity of behavior where nearly everyone conforms to that regularity, a system of mutual expectations where everyone expects everyone else to conform to that regularity, and a system of preferences where everyone prefers to conform to that regularity on the condition that everyone else conforms to that regularity, since it's a proper coordination equilibrium in the coordination problem that we face. we will say that a convention exists that solves this coordination problem. We have a conventional way of solving this particular coordination problem. Now, this is just a first pass at this definition. We're going to have to refine it. There are going to be problems with it. But as a first pass, this is what Lewis gives us. Next week, we will look at some of the refinements. So let's take a look at some examples. Meeting in the same place each year might be a convention that solves a particular coordination problem, in particular the meeting problem that we looked at earlier. My family has a regularity like this, or a convention like this. We meet every year on the first Saturday in July for a family reunion in the same place every year, and it starts at noon, the first Saturday of July every year. So we know without any coordination whatsoever, without any explicit agreement whatsoever, that we're going to be there, that this is what's going to happen, except it might not this year. But that's a sort of convention. In Oberlin, where David Lewis lived, the phone convention for the phone call scenario, the telephone scenario, was that the original caller would call back. And if everyone did this, right? If everyone conformed to this regularity, everyone expected everyone else to conform to this regularity, and everyone preferred to conform to this regularity given that everyone else did, this is a sort of convention. Rowing at the same speed is a sort of convention, no matter what speed it is. If everyone conforms to that regularity, and expects everyone else to conform to that regularity and prefers to conform to that regularity given that others are conforming to it, then this is a convention. Driving in the right-hand lane. If everyone conforms to this regularity, expects everyone else to conform to this regularity, and prefers to conform to this regularity, presuming that everyone else conforms to this regularity, then that's a convention, and it certainly is. Driving on the right-hand side or walking on the right-hand side is a kind of convention. The hunter's always doing the same thing in stag hunt would be a kind of convention. And speaking English among English speakers is a kind of convention. It's a regularity among English speakers. It's a regularity to which each person expects every other person to conform, and it's a regularity to which they want to conform given that everyone else is conforming to it. So we have some prime examples of conventions right here in front of us, and if we look, we'll find them all over the place. Next week, we will start refining this definition of a convention.